6:30.
Yes.
I'll call the meeting to order. Comments and suggestions from the community? We know you, but please state your name and address for the record.
Ron Howard, 1902 Shasta Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin. I was here January 10th. This is just the beginning. It's not that big of a deal, but I had talked about the heart monitors on January 10th. And the low cost on the internet site. Now I don't mind that you got the one you got. It's good you do, but the way the meeting was written up on January 10th, it called me a liar, and I don't appreciate being called a liar. These are the monitors. They are heart monitors. They are not defibrillators. You wrote the meeting up saying they were defibrillators. Anyway, that's the bad part. Get that out of the way. Second of all, I watched the meeting on River Channel, and I believe Brandon brought up the wages for a paramedic at $92,000 a year. That's obviously with benefits.
Right, yeah, that's the full package.
I just kind of wonder where the price comes from. You don't have to answer, obviously.
And these are just comments and suggestions. We're not allowed to interact.
Right,
so,
unless it's somebody important.
Brandon can get back to you on things, or...
No, that's okay, I understand. But anyway, by that comment, that means that we have, the city of Hudson has a $50,000 benefit package, which seems a little steep when the ad is for $40,000 a year to pay them. The $50,000 is a lot of money for a benefit package. And third, last week's meeting you talked about $17 per person to cover the cost of EMS. And you know, that's an odd saying when you probably got 8,000 people that don't pay property tax in town. Well, maybe not 8. You got at least 5,000. With the nursing homes, they don't pay taxes, so that's 17 per person. You can only go on the people that pay property tax. Now there's 7,500 people in town. Well, there's 7,500 water meters. So that means there's only 7,500 households and businesses, the way I look at it. Oh, where am I going now here? And last week, I'm not sure who it is. He's EMS with another outfit that's here at the meetings occasionally.
Oh, Ben.
Or he's sitting over there. He's from, but anyway, he's talking about going to an ambulance call and treating like a diabetic with giving them a little sugar and not transporting and not getting paid. You can still send a bill, can't you?
Kind of.
And I hear that, you know, not transport, not paid. I had a call, I didn't take transport, cost me $1,200. And that was 4 years ago, I believe. And we'll go on to my final is, where'd it go? Oh, your Facebook's members. I was looking up and I see they have 2,580 members that are Save St. Croix EMS or whatever it is. and I'm reading through there, I thought I was reading through a political ad. But at 2,500 members, each one of them give $8 a month, your problem solved. You got $233,000 from the city to cover the budget. They each pay $8 a month. That pays the whole thing off. I mean, and the 2,500 members, why don't you go to the businesses in town and ask them to put up a donation box like they used to do for 5 dimes, and have St. Croix EMS fundraisers in the bars. Where I come from, we used to have a couple times a year, we'd have it, they'd get $100,000, $200,000 in a month. You have these puzzles where the winning bar gets something, or the winning person out of all the bars. It's like a football pool, and you just draw a name. There's so many things out there. They could run the stand down here at the beach. You got 2,500, get some volunteers to work it, sell ice cream or something. But I see nothing being done by one end other than asking the taxpayers for money. Well, I understand that you need it. I'm glad you have it here. I've used it 4 times. Only one of them serious, but I've still used it 4 times. And I appreciate them, and I hope they stick around. 15,000 plus the other towns and the communities. Ask them to walk around door to door and say, would you donate for 1 year? Get somebody to go around every year in July or something, and hey, $8, that's cheap, and it is. But to me, that's a way to look at covering the cost of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments and suggestions from the community? Comments and suggestions from the EMS staff? Bradley Petty called me and asked me he said he was running late, and so I told him that we would move that down when he arrived. All right. Discussion and possible action on ad hoc committee minutes of 3/15/18.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Discussion and possible action on work groups. So, start with finance. Anything new, John?
I unfortunately have been pretty much out of town since we had our last meeting, so this next 2 weeks is where I hope to meet with some folks and go forward. Okay. I did talk with a representative at the Wisconsin Hospital Association, and he's going to send me back an email talking about the funding that could come from the feds if the state were to match Medicare. And so I should hopefully have for the next meeting a percentage. The estimate is for every dollar that the state would pay, the feds would contribute 46 cents of it. That's the estimate. Hopefully we'll have a more accurate number, but the initial thought is, yes, the state could be paying up to the Medicare rate 2 ambulances and get not half, but a chunk of it paid by the feds, in fact. And because our state is below several of the maximum caps that are on overall Medicaid reimbursement. So it'd be one way for us to look at, you know, how do you improve revenues, not just for ourselves, but for all the providers in the county and across the state, is to get Medicaid at least paying closer to cost. Certainly Medicare doesn't pay cost, but there's no reason for Medicaid to be paying half of what Medicare is. So
state of Wisconsin ever done that?
I don't know that anyone's actually gone and asked, you know. It may just, you know, this could be one of those things where this is a first effort where you get all of the county ambulance services to agree to sign the same letter, and we talk with our representatives. You know, we have a disbursement on both sides of the aisle, which I think is good in this case, and if you can get those folks to walk forward, you know, it's never anything quick, but again, you know, as we talked about, there is the issue of, I renewed one of the kids' track phones today, and it was 39 cents was put into some 911 quote police and fire fund, which, as you guys have found out, doesn't actually go to anyone here locally. There's certainly money, revenue being generated at the state level, and so perhaps that's one of those things we can try to push, because it would not only benefit us but all the ambulance services in the state if there was closer to equitable payment for those type of patients.
Do you have access to documentation or something explaining all that, so that if any of us happen to be talking to a representative or a senator?
That's what I'm hoping I'll get without a cost from one of the key financial folks from WHA that I've known for close to 20 years, yeah. Because this was really the formula that the Hospital Association used when it asked the state to tax it, which was really seemed quite strange when that came through about 10 years ago. What happened is all of the hospitals in the state are taxed at a percentage. It's something less than 3% of their gross billings on inpatients. And this goes into a fund. It's like $700 million. Yeah. That money is then matched by the feds at 42, 44, 46 cents. It's something like that. From that fund, the state added additional payment on every inpatient, so it's like $1,100 additionals added to every inpatient who's paid throughout the state. And then they added like $30 on every outpatient visit that happened throughout the state. There are hospitals who are winners, and there are hospitals who are losers. The hospitals that are winners serve the most Medicaid patients and get the most number of additional payments. There are some, North Shore, Milwaukee, who don't see a high percentage of Medicaid or see a very low percentage of Medicaid. And so those hospitals, in fact, pay more into the state taxes than they get back. Some of the private hospitals, the one in Altoona as an example, gets less than 50 cents on the dollar. But overall, there's more money at the end of the day than what was originally found by doing it. So there is this example. Now, I'm not going to want to ask the state to, you know, tax us so we can get paid back more money. But it's a method. It's a method that is done about 14 different ways, what I've discovered in California. I represent a governmental entity who's a hospital district. There is literally 5 different times during the year we contribute large sums of money, we send it to the state, the feds match it, and it comes back to us, multiplied. Yeah, it helps with the Medicaid population. That's exactly what it's aimed to do, is to try to get the hospital close to cost. In each of these circumstances, the state goes out and qualifies to the feds that at the end of the day, Medicaid's getting paid less than Medicare. So if that's my experience. So I believe that it's out there.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like, the first one sounds a little bit like what we've seen as the Milwaukee program, where it was a Medicaid, it wasn't very, didn't have as much detail as you did, but basically it involved the state managing the funding and then getting the additional payments back from the feds and redistributing it.
Exactly.
So, very similar.
Yep. State of Minnesota's done it for years with about a dozen high Medicaid population hospitals, regions, Hennepin County, University of Minnesota, where there's tens of millions of dollars that's been transferred there, gets matched by the feds, and then ends up back at those same institutions who see a large proportion of Medicaid patients. So
I think this is something that we need to, develop that more, and we need to get that to Patty Shackner too.
exactly.
She would be really interested in this. Give her some basis to work on.
Yeah, there's some key legislators with healthcare experience that can be helpful, and I'm sure she's one.
And there's a state representative down in, from Clinton, Wisconsin that Brandon said spoke at a recent conference, and she's very in tune with the EMS needs. And I've already passed her information on to Patty and asked Patty to make contact with her and see how they can work together to improve EMS services. Anything else?
That's what I have so far.
Thank you. In a similar vein, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin was in town the other day, and Jim and I both went to see her, and we mentioned the problems with Medicare and Medicaid funding and how it affects our EMS service, and she said that she would have her Medicare and Medicaid aide give us a call and let us know, discuss the problem with us. And so I will be calling her office and following up on that. So. All right, so that was the finance work group. Staffing, so Paul isn't here. Is there anything else that, any report on staffing? Okay, facilities.
I guess the thing we can say is that the council approved the moving ahead with getting the, tell me if I get this correctly, Brandon. Well, I think of what we approved was getting a design and a cost estimate for the building on Ward Avenue.
Correct. They chose to go with Five Bugles Design, the same company they've been working with for the fire station, to design the facilities and get a solid cost estimate.
I was encouraged by their initial estimate being between $350,000 and $500,000, and so that was.
And that was our projected cost about 2 years ago too, when we first started looking into this.
Okay. Anything else on work groups? Well, I've started to do a little bit of education work. I got an article printed in this week's paper. It was supposed to be in last week's and wasn't printed, but it did get into this week's. So I would like to suggest that we form an education work group, and I'll volunteer to head that. And pardon?
I'll serve on that.
Good. All right.
Unless you only want one board member.
No, we'll make things work.
Okay.
All right. I guess we need a motion.
I'll move we create an education work group with me and Joyce.
Do you want to define a purpose there, or
Yeah.
is that?
Okay. I'm thinking that it's going to be writing articles for the newspaper to let people know what's going on with the ad hoc committee, the progress that we're making, but also to help them to understand what the issues are and what the so looking at different models and what the positives and negatives of each model would be, and the concerns that you'd have with each of the models, or the pitfalls, things like that. But let them know what's going on within the service too. And so anything that has to do with helping the public understand EMS and how it's delivered.
Okay. With the newspaper being the basic form of communication.
Well, I think we can add to that as well. I'm not sure exactly how, but
That'd be part of your challenge, would be to
yes,
figure out. Okay.
yes.
Never mind, not that.
Well, we've got the website for the St. Croix EMS or their page.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a possibility of placing,
Facebook.
and then Facebook.
Okay.
So, wherever we can get the word out.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, let's go back to number 3. Bradley?
All right. All right, I'm Bradley. Thanks, Joyce, for going back this. This was a little idea that I thought up kind of amongst a bunch of other people. What I have for you in this packet is 3 schedules. The first one is what our schedule could look like on any given day. It was a little easier to understand on the computer screen. It was color-coded, but the black line you see on the evening shift from 06 to 05, which is actually supposed to be 06 to 06. I just ran out of real estate on the paper there. That would be a time that we have an open EMT spot. And I thought it would be wise to figure out how we can utilize the people that live in town. For me, I had reached my maximum hours for the week by the end of the week. So I was in town all day, all night, with nothing to do, essentially. And then on the next page, I had thrown in a couple extra lines, just as an example of either way you'd like to basically say, for everybody else that's working and everybody else that wants to look at the schedule, for them to see that I'm in town, I'm available. And it would be a good way to know that, hey, I can call Bradley and get him to come take a transfer. Or I can call him and say, we have a transfer, do you want to come take the transfer? Or if the ambulance leaves for the cities on a 911 call, they know that I'm back in town. It's kind of a reassurance that there's somebody there, instead of me just coming down to the station and saying, I'm around, I'm available, and then nobody knows where I am or what I'm doing. So it's just kind of a reminder for everybody to see. So I'm approaching you with this because you guys are kind of looking at the staffing, the stability, and stuff like that. I'm just looking for feedback if you guys think this would be a good idea to kind of evolve and where to go from there. The other thing that we could kind of throw in there too is the I Am Responding app that the county had adopted a while back. There's a messaging feature in there. We can send messages to one another if nobody's on the schedule, if we decide to go a different route than this. If the truck leaves town, we can quick use a formatted message that's already preloaded on there. Just send out, the truck is headed for Regions at this time. Either give a call, use the radio, respond to the station. You can even respond on the app to say that you're available and you're going to cover when we're short on staff like that. So that was kind of my idea. It's not perfect by any means. There's a lot of stuff that could go a lot of different ways, and I think as a whole group, as a service, we could work from this and find something that will be smooth running for us. And then the last thing is at night. If you go to the last page, let's see here. At night, when we're fully staffed, we currently still only use 2 people on the truck, medic, EMT, and then there's a backup crew. And where you see the stipend at night from the 06 to 05, which should be 18 to 06, I'm sorry, that medic is allowed to be at home still. And I feel like if we did the 3-person crews, it would offer a couple benefits to that. And I'm not sure if we can really change this or if this is already, there's just less people around. And so if we did 3-person crews at night, you have more help lifting, stuff like that. And then the other thing too is utilizing that third EMT, because if we have a first call out and we send 2 people on our truck, the EMT is still in the basement of this facility while the other medic's at home. So they're not being fully utilized when they could be on the ambulance doing patient care, getting clinical experience and stuff like that. Then if another call comes in, we're a little more dynamic to get an ambulance out the door.
Anybody have questions?
So the first one sounds like it's a tracking system, availability and communication.
It's kind of...
Who is that? It goes across the whole organization.
Yes, it's basically revolving around the volunteer model, I guess, is just saying that I'm in town, I'm willing to make the commitment to stay available for the service, so if you need me, use me.
But just using technology to track that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just a way for everybody to see.
How does that differ from what happens now?
So for me, I worked Monday and Tuesday, and this schedule was for Friday, March 23rd. I had my 24 hours in Monday, Tuesday. I worked 2 12-hour shifts. So if I wanted to work any more than that, it would be considered overtime, which then limits me toward the end of the year, where now I just work my 24 hours so that way I can be consistent. That's just for me. And when I'm around, I go downstairs and I tell whoever's down there, hey, I'll be at home, I'm around, I'm in town, I'm available. It's not overly reassuring to them that I'm here. You know, it's easy to forget about how many people you have in town. So for this, if I wanted to legitimately volunteer and say, you can use me, then we can look and see that I am for sure in town. And then if we did get called out and I was utilized, then at that point I could go get paid for the time that I'm actually working. It's just a way to narrow down the hours so I'm only being paid for what I'm actually being used. Right. Instead of just working 12-hour shifts, not getting any calls, and then the nighttime rolls around. Okay. I've met my hour requirement and they're short-staffed.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good idea because then we know who's actually in town.
In case we get 2 calls or whatever.
It's kind of hard to obligate somebody to do that when they're willing to volunteer like that. But for me, I only live a couple minutes away. There's a few others that live very close to here, and I've talked to other people that said if you get a transfer that's going to be long haul to Eau Claire, Rochester, they're not common, but if they do happen, give them a call and then they'll make something happen if they're available.
How would this change affect the dynamics and the culture of your current crew, do you think?
I think it would just give us that reassurance that he said that we know that there's people there that we can pull.
So you wouldn't have to start going down the list looking for people.
Right. You know exactly where to start if you need something.
Should we put it on the next agenda to discuss and get some more details?
I think it's a management issue for Brandon to wrestle with. I mean,
this is something we could
come to us, but
implement fairly easily.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
that's
the only downfall that
The
only downfall that I saw was that somebody's going to have to go back and alter the schedule or make sure we're getting compensated for the time that we do come in. That might be a little difficult keeping track of those hours and such. But yeah, it's essentially like an all call. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're the one that's going to end up having to track that?
Yes.
What do you think? How difficult is it?
That's not difficult at all. No, it's kind of similar to what we do now. So.
Yeah, we can even make a special time type for it for the non-paid available hours, and the system will track all that. So implementing it's actually fairly easy. Okay.
So then, put it on the future agenda as a report on how well it's being implemented. Any other comments, Bradley?
I think that's it. Hopefully I explained it well enough. It's mildly complicated, but I think it could have a big impact on our availability, especially to take transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Important issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the second page, that's a different topic. I don't quite understand the three-person.
Oh, the 3-person. So we run two-person crews. We have 4 people on staff, 2-person crews. The first crew out at night is medic EMT. They're both in the basement, as well as the other EMT. And the second medic is oftentimes coming from home. So for me, I think it's a bigger benefit to use the 2 EMTs and the medic on the first out call, because if we only use the 2-person crews, we still have 1 person downstairs that's not utilized, and they would be waiting for the backup medic to come to the station regardless. So if they're coming from their home, or the EMT's coming from the other scene, it's kind of a wash for time, when the EMT could either divert to another call or come get the truck, and the medic could divert to the other call. It's just kind of more dynamic, and I think at night it's just easier to have an extra set of hands. During transport, I would recommend that the medic always be on the ambulance instead of in the chase vehicle, because then we don't end up with a 2 medic crew and then a 2 EMT crew. Does that help?
Yeah, so the third person going out would be in a different vehicle, so they
Yes.
could. So
Yes.
they could.
We would utilize.
If
We would
another call
utilize
come
the
in,
chase
they can go
vehicles.
ahead and respond to that call.
Yes, essentially. Yep. So it basically at night is what we used to do. Is how we used to staff our trucks with 3 people.
I'm sure there's always there's always trade-offs to this.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that is worth looking at, Brandon, and come back
It needs a
and
little bit more review and refining it, but we can look into it.
tune it and see the.
So then, Bradley, for the 3rd-person thing during the evenings, is that second medic still at home stipend?
Yeah, I wouldn't change that, because they're still coming from home. So I figured if we did have 2 calls come out at the same time at night, it would be almost the same difference most of the time to have the EMT come back to the truck and meet the medic, or go to the next scene and then have the medic get the truck type. Because either way, the backup ambulance is going to have to wait, because the medic is coming from home when they're at home. So either way, they're going to be waiting.
Okay. Any other questions for Bradley?
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good
No
stuff.
problem.
Very good.
Okay, discussion and action, possible action on strategic plan. So, do we have any more information about a facilitator?
Just looking for the email here. I'm not seeing it. Do you have that handy?
That was from Ben.
From Ben, yeah. It's not popping up. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, Ben referenced a facilitator that he had worked with in other situations. His name is John Becnel. He's I'm just reading from his bio here. John is a community and organizational psychologist and an accomplished facilitator, interviewer, teacher, and researcher. He has been involved in emergency services and healthcare for 35 years and has worked as a paramedic, educator, manager, systems developer, and consultant. founding publisher of Best Practices in Emergency Services, former editor-in-chief of the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. He serves on numerous national projects and provided the conceptual design for the National EMS Workforce Agenda for the Future, 2009. John has been involved in emergency medical system development in North America, the Middle East, and Central America. He's the author of 2 books and has published articles in numerous journals and trade magazines on emergency services, administration, management, and workforce. John has a passion for finding out and identifying the best practices, as well as understanding the sociological relationship between emergency medical services and the communities they serve. So I guess I like the credentials, and I like particularly the last paragraph about identifying the best practices, which is what we say we're about, and understanding the sociological relationship between the emergency medical services and the communities they serve. I think that's really that's one of our critical issues. Your education piece starts to move towards that, is making sure that what we do is understood. So that's as far as I've gotten. I have not followed up on any contact. I have no idea what his availability or cost would be. But it certainly is, I think, worthwhile having a minimum a conversation with this guy. Would that be the
Yeah, well, the first step is to call and find out what his availability is and what
he costs?
Yeah, what the bill might look like, and then yes, and start with a phone call and probably
we set up a conference call with however many people want to be involved. I guess.
Okay. And
should we do limited to the committee?
Yeah, and we can ask Joanne to send out a notice and have it here in City Hall, or maybe in the EMS conference room.
I'm not sure we want that this is.
If we're going to have, if the committee is meeting, it has to.
Right,
group,
right.
Has to be
but if we're going to start negotiating.
Okay.
Costs, and then that might be something we'd rather.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking out loud here as to whether that would be appropriate or not. But we're probably not doing anything. We're not giving away anything.
We're just getting information at this point.
Right.
And then, if we decide to get into negotiations, then we talk to Devin about
how we do that. Yeah.
We'll probably have to have some closed meetings.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, can you initiate a call next week?
Yes,
maybe
I can.
After Tuesday?
Maybe.
Where is that guy located?
I don't think it said.
No, it didn't. I can't remember what Ben said about that.
Yeah, he said though that we might be able to piggyback on another visit that he's got, so that we wouldn't have to pay as much for the travel costs. But that's a good question to be.
Yeah, I'll make the initial contact and see when would be a good time. When is our next meeting? Next scheduled meeting?
We haven't set the date yet, so we'll come back to this when we. After we schedule the.
This might be a special.
Okay, because that's number 10 on our agenda.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on the strategic plan? Some of I think that we need to be starting to work on the strategic plan, whether we've got a facilitator yet or not. And one of the things that I think would be very helpful would be for us to start looking at these different service types that are listed in the original strategic plan from 2010, 2011, and start making some charts that are more detailed than what's in this strategic plan of the positives and negatives of each type. Make sure that, and then add different models that, I mean, this is, 8 years old. I'm sure that there are some other models that are available, and start to develop a picture, and then how much each of these models would probably cost to implement, so that as we're doing our education piece, we can let the community know what the options really are. So, how should we start that project?
I think that's a good idea. And I'd be happy to tackle this along, as well as other folks too. Brandon or Josh, maybe you know if there are other sources for information about models that might be a little more up to date. And if there are, if you'd let me know, send me an email or send me a URL or something.
Yeah, I can definitely send you some information. There's unlimited resources out there as far as different options, so.
You might need to narrow things down then.
Exactly.
And then if you could send it to Joanne and have her send it out to the whole committee, that would be good. So, my husband suggested that we each take a model and start the process with that particular model, and then present at our next meeting what we found for that model. And what do you think?
So maybe set aside like a half hour at the meeting. It's just, we're just going to focus on these models and see how much we get done. But everybody we'd have to do some homework.
Okay.
But
I think that's a good idea.
All right. So everybody take a look at the service types that are in this strategic plan, and then look at the advantages and disadvantages, but also develop a list of questions that we would have to answer for each of these particular models.
Why don't you make assignments? I don't have the plan with me. Why don't you make assignments?
For different service types?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've got the fire service, we've got the public utility model, we've got the third government agency, we've got private for-profit / nonprofit agency, we've got community-based and or volunteer agency, and we've got hospital-based.
I think we can scratch a couple of those. I don't think anyone's interested in the combined fire model.
I think that we should at least have information about that, how it would pertain, and why we wouldn't want to
I think that would.
consider it.
Yeah.
So,
because as sure as the world, if we don't, we'll get asked about that.
yeah.
Why didn't you consider this?
I was going to suggest scratching the volunteer when we've already gone past that. But your point's still taken.
Well, and then, yeah, the volunteer, same thing.
Right.
Why it's not working, or why it wouldn't work here. So, anybody want to volunteer for any of these? Which one would you like, Bill?
Public utility, I guess.
Public utility. All right. Jim,
Make it, pick one. Just pick one.
you want me to pick one?
Yeah, just the next one, I guess.
All right. Why don't you do the fire service?
Okay.
We're gonna run out of people.
I think somebody's going to have to take two. Third government agency. John, what would you like to take?
Either hospital or government agency.
Can I put you down for both of those?
Sure.
All right. I will take the private for-profit / nonprofit agency. And we still have community-based and or volunteer agency.
Brandon, would you be willing to talk about that? You have more experience with the volunteer service than anybody here, I think.
Yeah, yep.
You think that's fair, Joyce?
Sure. I don't see why not. Okay. And we'll all be asking Brandon for more resources on each of these. And I think we should look beyond and look at how can you minimize some of the problems with each of these? Or, is there a way of doing a hybrid of some of these so that we can take advantage of the advantages of some of them versus and minimize the disadvantages?
Mhm.
But this is a good place to start.
Who's doing the one where the EMS is part of government?
John. Okay.
Question gets to be, how do you define government?
In that study, it's what we currently operate.
Okay.
So,
And, those are the kinds of things that we'll be bringing back next time, the questions that we come up with. Something, another suggestion that I got was that we look through the contract that we had developed with Lakeview and talk about what the objections were and how we can what would have been a better model.
Mhm.
So, is everybody willing to look at that Lakeview contract and?
Send it to us, right?
I think I have a copy of
Yeah, if you could do that.
Okay, so then that should be,
That's starting to sound like a full agenda, though.
yeah, I know. Well,
Next time, or is that, we're going to be,
Maybe the time after that.
maybe the time after that. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
The Lakeview model falls either under the private contractor model
Or the hospital base.
hospital model. My
Mhm.
guess is private contractor, since it's not the hospital's not a public utility.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so let's take a look at the models, and then we can take a look at the,
Yeah.
oh, man, do you want to go there?
Okay. Yeah, let's plan on that for the following meeting.
Okay.
Anything else on the strategic plan? Okay. All right. Discussion and possible action on survey tied to elections. So you saw that we got an answer from Jen about not being able to tie it to, if it's tied to something that's actually on the ballot, we have to be cautious about that. So if we want to do a survey in August or November, that might be possible.
What would it take to have a referendum in November?
I think that if you use the school remodeling and expansion as a model, because you wouldn't want to have a referendum until you are sure that you've got a question that is probably going to pass.
Okay, I don't think we're there yet.
No. And so then,
The model, the example I've been thinking of is the nursing home. We voted on the nursing home in St. Croix County twice.
mhm,
And I was thinking that was a referendum, but maybe I'm wrong.
that was a referendum, yes.
And that was a very simple issue.
Right.
Should there be a nursing home
Okay.
that's tax supported in St. Croix County? Right.
Okay, I guess I'm thinking of, when you said referendum, I was thinking of asking for money.
Yeah,
But
I'm not,
you're just asking for an opinion.
right. And that was
That wouldn't,
a powerful vote.
and that would be doable, I believe. We'd have to talk to Jen about that.
But November would be the time to do it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That should be a target.
So would you end up with that question in 3 or 4 entities, 4 government units we serve. So you can do the city, the village, the town.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know about the town of Troy or the town of Warren.
That's what you mean. Where we ask what polling places we ask the question. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, we have, I don't know if you want to call them zones or districts or whatever, out in town of Hudson. I kind of suspect Troy probably does too.
Yeah, we do in Troy as well. What, the northern third of Troy or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we can split the vote that way, the way they do with school boards, for instance. I don't know.
They can split the taxes, so you probably should be able to split the vote.
You know, there may be, you know, when you're up there registering, there may be something that tells the person who's checking you in that you're in the area that has this extra question, or you're not in the area that has this extra question.
Yeah, they can. That's only true in Troy and Warren.
I suppose Cindy Campbell would know.
Warren is really not an issue because they're not at this point not paying anything. So.
Should be.
They're so, to me, they're so small. Whatever the rest of them decide, that's their choice.
Yeah.
They really don't have a.
True.
They've refused to participate anyway. So at this point.
So if we can figure out how to cover our service area in Troy, that would be good. Otherwise, we could just do town of Hudson, city of Hudson, North Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
It should be fairly simple, I would think.
Do you want to take a stab at a question and bring it back to the meeting next time?
Sure.
You're a good person for writing a survey question.
Yeah, no, I think the question that we finally ask is going to be informed by the conversations we have at our next 2 meetings and whatever strategic plan we do. But I'll start noodling around and see what I come up with.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
It could come down to, given here are the 2 choices that we're looking at, and we would have to do some pre-work, pluses and minuses.
Right.
Of the 2.
And that's why we're doing that chart. Or he suggested, my husband suggested that we have a poster for each model that we're considering, and then all of the information on that poster so that we can present it to the public. As far as
I was starting to imagine whiteboards on the wall here. So.
Yep. All right. Anything else on the survey? EMS items for discussion only? Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to mention internally, one of the things we're working on right now is a RFP for billing. It went out. We had some responses. We're going to be meeting with 3 companies in the near future to look at improving collections and getting a better rate.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Good.
So when does that?
We've already reviewed the applicants, so
Okay.
we narrowed it down to 3. So we just have to set up the date for the 3 vendors to come in and sit down with us.
Okay. Good.
What's our rate of non-collections currently? I mean, is it terrible?
Not really. No. It's just the the adjustments are what really gets us.
I don't understand.
So the Medicare, Medicaid.
Oh, I see. Got it. That's not something that the vendor can fix.
No. We can just get a better rate on their percentage of it.
Right.
Okay. Anything for future agendas? We've got things pretty well figured out for this next one. We got a full schedule for the next one. Okay. And is there anybody who's Brandon? Will you be addressing Ron's questions with him?
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. Next meeting time and date. So Thursdays are still good for everybody?
I have a board meeting that starts at 7, which is one where I call in that night. It's a special board meeting.
Which night?
Thursday, the
The
12th.
12th? Yeah,
And I'm back at 7 in the morning on the 26th. I fly in overnight.
what about the 19th?
I'm in California that week.
I'm gone.
What about Wednesday, the 11th? Brandon, you still doing your training course?
Yes, I do have class that night.
So, so I'm going to be traveling on the 12th.
Tuesday the 10th, does that work?
Tuesday, the 10th. I've got public utilities at 6. We could meet at 7. Would that work for?
Fine.
7 o'clock on the 10th?
That's our, well, 17th is the organization meeting. So
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the 10th works.
Okay, 7 o'clock on the 10th. All right. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.